Hey guys, this is Eric Weingarten with Weingarten Racing. This is just a little update from how I got out of the hospital. The whole hospital experience. First, I want to thank all the people that called or text or emailed, messaged me, wishing me well and stuff. I really do appreciate that. I mean, it means a lot, and I'm not joking. I'm not good at responding to those things. I almost feel weird. And the only reason why, by the way, I put out that last video with me in the hospital is more because of this. So I'm in the hospital and they're trying to do their thing, with all the heart stuff. And I got my phone on because I'm thinking, my wife's going to want to call and get some updates constantly. And this is nothing against you. You guys just didn't know. The phone's ringing off the hooks for the shop stuff. And so I'm like either letting them go to voicemail and stuff. I think I answered one of them when there wasn't anybody around. But anyway, the reason why I even put that out wasn't for a pity party. Woe was me. It was more for, I just needed people just to not call as much during that time. But I couldn't turn off my phone, obviously, for my wife. So, but the only reason why I'm telling you that is thanks for all the well wishes and stuff. And I don't didn't do that video for sympathy. I promise you that. In all truthfulness, I wish I hadn't, I kind of wish I hadn't said a thing to anybody, my wife, anybody. But anyway, I do want to ask all of you a favor. Some of you know my son. I got 14,000 subscribers or whatever. Some of you know my son. I would ask this big favor. Don't tell him. He doesn't know. It will serve no good for him to find out that I was in the hospital. So if you can, please don't tell him. That's just a favor I'm asking. And you could judge me for that for all you want, but I just can't see any positive coming from him finding out that I was in the hospital. So just that's that. But let me go ahead and talk about my hospital experience with you. And I will warn you, probably at the end of this, I'll have a little rant because it needs to be said. And I'm sure other people have said it. I don't know if people listen. So here's what happened, basically. I went swimming on Thursday morning, practice swimming or attempted drowning. And this had happened back in January as well. If I took too long on a breath, too much swimming, and I can't explain the way of swimming stuff, and I won't bore you with it, but I had held my breath too long while struggling, and it caused my whole body was twitching anyway, trying to swim as it was, and the heart just must not have had enough oxygen. Of course it didn't, and it went into a spasm. And they call it atrial fibrillation. And I was hoping that it would come out of it because it happened in January it had it, and it went away in like maybe 3 hours. So I was hoping that it would come out of it because it didn't seem as bad as the one in January, but it never ended. Got out of the pool, took a little nap before I started my day. It was still going. In case you're wondering what atrial fibrillation is, because some of you may not know, and I'm making it as generic as possible. The heart really has two sections. There's four, but I won't bore you. There's a top section and the bottom section. And when it works is you got a top one that squeezes and then the bottom one that squeezes. And it's supposed to go top, bottom, top, bottom. That's how it works, and we're loved up. But what happens is when you're in atrial fibrillation, they're off. They're not synced, or there's a spasm. So in other words, the top one's going, but it's not going at the same rhythm as the bottom one. So the heart's not working efficiently. It's not that it's not pumping blood. It's just not pumping blood well, and it's causing blood to kind of pool in the heart too. And what it feels like, if you ever have it, is it feels like Mike Tyson's doing a punching bag, but the punching bag is your heart inside there. So it feels like sometimes it's faster and sometimes it's slower. It's not good. However, after doing research about it, it turns out 6 million Americans have it. In case you're wondering, more people have atrial fibrillation than have all forms of cancer. That was new to me too. So evidently it's very common. The worst things it's most likely to cause is strokes. And the reason why is because the way the heart's pumping, it can't flush the heart out completely. And so blood can clot in the heart because if blood sits long enough in any one certain spot, it clots, just like it would on your skin, whatever. Well, anyway, that clot eventually could come off and then it goes to your brain and causes stroke. So anyway, that's what it is. It started on Thursday. I was like, if it's still doing it on Friday morning, I'll go to my primary care physician and we'll see about doing this. For the record, I don't go to doctors. And this will probably be at the rant at the end. I don't go to doctors for this reason. I have insurance. for those who don't know, I'm self-employed, obviously, but my wife still works for the school system and I have insurance through her. It's not good insurance. Anyway, the reason why I don't go to doctors is because you can have insurance and you still pay out the wazoo. So I don't go. I haven't been to one in more than a year. So I scheduled an appointment with actually didn't schedule an appointment. I told them what was going on in the heart and I said, come right in, we'll look at you. I was like, okay. Well, they put that little thing on my finger and they're like, you need to go to the emergency room. There's nothing we can do here. You need to go to the emergency room. Luckily, they didn't check me in, so I didn't get charged for a copay for that. So I went to St. Francis South, which is here in Tulsa, and told them my stuff. And here's his experience, because you notice all this stuff on Facebook and TikTok, they're full of shit. Sorry for the cussing. I walk in there ain't anybody in the waiting room. I actually thought, I don't know if I'm in the right place. There's no one in the waiting room. So I go there, I do my check-in, tell them what's going on. No one's in the waiting room at all, which is strange. Maybe 5 minutes later, they come get me and they take me back to the room and they tell me to take off my shirt and they start putting these patches all over me. And they're not patches, there's something to do with like the EKG machine. And the minute they do and they got it all hooked up, the thing starts beeping. And that's the warning sign. And then it keeps beeping and keeps beeping. And they're like, oh. And so they have this other more advanced EKG machine comes in to confirm the results. And it's like, yep, that's definitely atrial fibrillation. And for the record, 2 nurses initially came in. And of course they have to stick the needle in my arm, which I hate. I do not like needles. I'm sure that's why I could never be a drug addict. The needle thing would screw me. But I used to be fine with needles till one nurse couldn't find, and I would think I'm not jacked, but I've got enough where you could find stuff. She couldn't find it, so she's rooting around. And I was going to get blood drawn before I went to school. So Bishop was really young at this time. I know I go off on tangents. Bishop was really young at this time, so I was like, just come in with me. It'll take like 5 minutes, just sit over there. And it was just the 2 of us, and I think he was like 5 or 6. She couldn't get it. And she's rooting around, and I'm like, oh crap. I start getting sweating and light pale, and I'm about to pass out. And he's watching, my son, so I'm like, oh God, worst experience ever. So before that, it was fine. Till after that, no. But she stuck me just fine, pulls the IV. They start pulling blood at the hospital and whatnot. There's an ER doctor that comes in. She looks at it, and she's like, ooh, that blood pressure's a little low. Is it normally that low? I'm like, I don't know. I don't check it. You know why I don't check it? Because I don't want to find out. You know what I mean? And also I don't go to the doctor, so I don't know. Then they're asking, well, do you have any history of heart disease? I'm like, well, my parents don't go to the doctors either. I mean, they do now. My mom kind of does because she had some issues. But for the most part, no. So it's a hard question to answer. My dad really didn't when he was my age at all. He only started going when he was really old. And then, of course, he died of leukemia. So I don't know. So they're like, do you drink? Nope. And for the record, I don't drink. I'll drink if I go out with friends on a rare occasion. Very rare, so that didn't happen. Like, do you smoke? Nope, don't smoke, don't do alcohol. How many do you drink caffeine? I have at the most 3 cups of coffee a day, but usually it's 2. Okay. Do you snore? I don't know if I snore, I'm asleep. Which that makes me sound like I'm a dick when I'm saying this, but it's like, I really don't know. And my wife's not there, and I told her don't even bother coming. So I called her, told her I was going to the emergency room. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried, that sort of thing. I was like, just stay there, there's no purpose. I said, I'll keep you up to date. So I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, does your wife tell you that she's waking you up? She's like, she grinds her teeth. She can't hear my snoring if I did snore over her teeth grinding. So like, okay. So anyway, I'm like, surely they're going to do something to get this thing fixed. And they give me some medicine just to slow down the heart. And it does slow down the heart. So I was like, yay. It went from like 150 beats a minute to 87, but it kept jumping up. So it'd be like 87, then jump to 120, back to 87, just me laying there. So they have a cardiologist that comes in, and he's like an old guy and has an assistant with him, and he's like, same questions again, but then he's like, do you have sleep apnea? And I was like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, how many hours of sleep are you getting? I said, usually, if I'm lucky, 6, but it's usually about 4. And that was the red flag for me. It's like, you're not getting enough sleep by far. And in all fairness, I don't know that I've gotten, I think in the average time, it's been 4 hours of sleep for at least the last 4 to 5 years, because that watch keeps track. Yeah, I don't get much sleep because I'm too busy working. Am I tired? You betcha. But that's definitely not good for the heart. Plenty of people warned me of that, but I was like, I got stuff done. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It was not fine. So anyway, they gave me some IV stuff that slowed down the heart rate, didn't fix it. And they're like, well, we can shock you, but how long has this been going on? Well, because I went swimming, I knew exactly the time it started, about 5 in the morning. And by the way, the whole scenario probably led up to it. So I look, by the way, I was super dehydrated too, evidently. They told me not to drink anything too, so I don't know. So anyway, usually when I go swimming, here's how it works. I'll get up, in that case, I was up till 12 doing a video for this. So up till midnight, take a shower, and I went to bed, and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the reason for 4 o'clock is because the pool opens at 4:30, and it fills up. And since I'm not a good swimmer, I prefer to be there before everybody gets to witness the audience, for an audience to watch me not swim well. So anyway, I got there, so it's 4 hours of sleep. So there was a bunch of things going wrong. And I don't eat anything for a winter, so low blood sugar, dehydrated, very little sleep, and then trying to do something that was very difficult. It wasn't good. It was a mistake on my part. I just didn't think it would have this long-lasting consequences. Anyway, so they do their thing. They're like, we can shock you, but since you've gone with defib for so long, we have to do this sonogram of your heart, but we have to go down your esophagus. And so in my mind, I'm like, how that's going to work? Evidently, I guess they knock you out. They put something down your throat so they can look over the side of your heart and see if there's a blood clot. And if there's not a blood clot, then they can shock you, and it puts your heart back in the rhythm, and you should be good to go for a while. It may come back. Which now I wish I had said do it. But even then, they're like, do you want to get admitted to the hospital? I said I'd prefer not, because the reason why I didn't want to get admitted because they said they wouldn't even do this till Monday. Today is Sunday. So I'm like, I'm going to spend 4 days in the hospital to get nothing done, to watch the bill just ching, 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 ching. No. So anyway, they scheduled me an appointment. They're supposed to call me tomorrow to schedule an appointment for an echocardiogram of my heart to see if there's some kind of valve issue or something. They did a chest x-ray too. And the way that the cardiologist explained it, she said, your heart has 2 parts, electrical and plumbing. Your plumbing's fine. It's the electrical that's messing up. Look okay. And then they gave me Metropol, I think it's what it's called, and Lexapro, some kind of blood thinner. It's in there. I don't have a clue. I don't remember. All I remember is I asked her, how long I got to be on this? She's like, it could be the rest of your life. It's like, I ain't going to be on the rest of my life. I can tell you that right now. I'm not going to take a drug the rest of my life. You can forget that. So you need to figure this stuff out before that. And I know I sound like a dick. But I'm like, no, I'm not paying a pimp the rest of my life. I want to pay just to live. No, screw you. I hate that. And she's just being nice. And I said, so I'm saying that in my head, but really aloud, I'm like, do I really have to be on the rest of my life? Because I promise you I won't do that. I'll do it till I feel like it's normal and I'm going to quit. Because I don't want to pay to live. And she's like, okay. And then she's like, it's Eliquis. That's what it is. She's like, does you know if your insurance covers it? I was like, ma'am, I've never even used my insurance yet, so I don't know. It's like, well, some don't. You want me to get you some free samples? I was like, oh, thank you, God. So you could say whatever you want about the medical profession in general, but my gosh, there's some really good ones there. So she gave enough for a month's supply. I don't know how much it is, but I bet it's a bunch. Because when I went to go pick up my prescription for the Metropol from the CVS pharmacy, with my insurance, the Metropol was $9.83. I don't mind that. By the way, Metropol, what it does is it just slows down your heart rate. That's the idea, is it's going to slow it down so you're not into super fast AFib. Because it's still going on right now. The Eliquis is just to thin your blood. It's a blood thinner. So the idea is if your blood's thinner, you're not going to have a clot. So the pharmacy looks at that and she's like, your insurance doesn't cover it. It's like, oh my God, thank God I got free samples. But still, whoo, scary. Anyway, so that's what's going on. I don't have an answer to I have a guess of what actually caused it, but I don't really know. They're supposed to call me tomorrow to set up the following: an echocardiogram. I'm supposed to have another appointment with the cardiologist that came in and saw me. And then I'm supposed to have a sleep study done as well. And I got to do those 3. I guess they're going to call me tomorrow to set up appointments. And then the other thing, which I'm not sure on, she said you have to be on blood thinners for 3 weeks, and then we could shock your heart back into normal if it hasn't returned by then. But she's like, with hope that it would return, that it'll be back to normal. It is currently not. Say what you will about the iWatch, it does say it, and it kept popping up atrial fibrillation, and it matched kind of what that thing does. So it's still been saying, hey, your heart's still screwed. I did ask the doctor, hey, can I exercise? So I figured, you know what, I'm gonna try some different stuff. Maybe if I exercise real hard, get the heart rate going real fast, maybe it'll reset itself. And I know some of you are like, that sounds stupid. No, I asked her specifically about exercise. She's like, yes, we prefer if you exercise, it's actually better for your heart. You just can't really overdo it. I was like, well, that's fine, I don't really overdo it anyway. So I went out and worked out yesterday with my arms, and I'll be honest with you, I actually felt stronger. I actually lifted more weight than normal, not trying to, just did. Today I did squats, which is really tough anyway, and it might have felt slightly worse. I'm not as tired, so maybe that's good too, but the heart rate for sure was up, because at the end of the squat workout, I'll get on the exercise bike, and that heart rate was showing like 230, which is insanely high. It's like almost death, I think. But then it would be like 230, 165, 185. So it's all over the place. Anyway, there's your update. Now for the rant. The reason why I don't go to doctors is because I don't want to pay. If you don't want to hear a rant, you might as well turn this off now. And probably some of you already have. Because it's going to sound political. And I don't care what political party it is, but needs fixed, and it should have been fixed long ago. The reason why I don't go to doctors is because I couldn't afford it. Why didn't I? Because if I had to pay nothing or very low amount of money, I would have gone on Thursday in the morning and had it where they shocked my heart, and I'd be fine right now. Why didn't I? Because I knew this is going to cost me a fortune. And I know some of you are like, well, don't worry about money. It shouldn't cost people a fortune. Let me put it to you this way. So I just sent off my quarterly taxes, because you're self-employed, you have to pay quarterly taxes. And it was $3,500. Sent that off, right? $3,500. Remember that number. That's for your federal taxes, okay? So anyway, you send off that money, and that pays for everything that the federal government does, which to me is nothing worth to me. You could think, and people are going to be like, and I know instantly when I say that, people are like, it's people mooching off the government. If you looked at the budget, most of that money that I just sent off went for the military budget. And before you say, well, don't you support troops? I do, but only 20% of the $800 billion actually goes to troops. The rest goes for programs and stuff, and you could think 20% at least is going to administrative costs for these Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and all these others junk. So that's where your money's going for that. If you're thinking of Social Security, Medicare, that's actually a smaller percent than the budget for the military. Just straight up telling you. Like, well, don't you want to be the country to be safe? Yes, I do. But I do think, and it cannot be said enough, that it's over. But forget all that. Forget what I sent my tax payment for. Forget that. I'm just saying that because I want you to understand that. I don't really get much out of it. I don't see a huge change. Roads are still shit. Schools are still shit. There's not much good. Now, at the same time, I spend $900 a month for insurance. That's for the health insurance. For my wife gets hers for free, so it's $900 for me and my son. That's just health insurance. That doesn't include dental or vision. So if I do 900 times 3, that's $2,700, which means I'm almost spending as much money in taxes to build the greatest stealth fighters ever, or whatever they do with it, and other garbage, as I do on insurance. Now, if that insurance money went 100%, you're covered, you go to the doctor, it's paid for, I would almost be, oh, okay. I'd hate it, but I'd be okay. But it's not really insurance. Because yes, it's technically insurance. They call it insurance, but it's not insurance. It's just a discount card. Because the minute you walk in there, if I'm lucky, I'm only going to pay 50% of the cost. When it goes up to a certain point before you're absolutely broke, they'll pay 80%. And then when you're thoroughly broke, they'll pay for it all. So yeah, $2,700, But in reality, I'm going to spend more on this one bill than I did, which will make what I spend on insurance more than I spent on taxes. I am not the only one. This has been all the people in the United States are doing through the same thing. And every politician, I don't care if you're a Trump lover. Oh, I love Trump. He's going to give us the greatest health care ever. He didn't do anything. Neither did Obama, neither did Bush, neither did Joe Biden, neither did any of the presidents. Every single election, it's the same shit. We're going to fix health care. You ain't fixing nothing because they're paying you. That it's broke. You know, and then not only that, these insurance and medical companies will spend ads to convince people that what's going on now is great. You get choice to be broke. And people believe it. I would love, by the way, like, why are you getting so upset? It's probably bad for your heart. You're right. I would love if we had what Sweden has and others. Well, we're going to pay more in taxes. Okay. If we paid more in taxes, because that's what they keep saying, taxes are going to go through the roof. If I take what I spent in insurance, and then I take what I had in taxes, and it paid for everything, I'd at least be okay because I got insurance. I mean, I know what to pay for medical bills. I'd be okay with it. Instead of like, you're going to pay more, you're going to pay more. The taxes are going to be outrageous. There's no way their taxes cost more than what I pay in taxes and insurance. Promise. And it's not really insurance because we all know we're going to pay when we go, even with insurance. And before you say, well, it's because doctors and medical providers got charging too much. Maybe. Or the more likely thing is that, and this is well aware, insurance companies and every medical thing, 20% of their costs are administrative. 20%. So whatever this bill is going to be, let's say it's $100,000. $20,000 went to the people at the top. When government runs stuff, you can knock government stuff all you run, and they don't run well, I admit. But I would still rather have that than causing me to go broke to just stay alive. But people are still going to be convinced. Still, they're going to be like, no, that's a bad idea. I want my own choice. You want your choice to be broke? I just want it fixed. And the sad part is, I know, it never will be. Because the people are making not a little money, a lot of money by keeping it just like it is. I mean, think about it. You and your family and your household right now, how much you spend on insurance? Count it up. Then go get your pay stub and look at how much you actually spend in taxes. They're almost the same. And what are you getting? You're getting, I hope I won't go broke even with insurance. I will say this. When I was a teacher, they had this one company that came in because they recognized that teachers have crap insurance, which, by the way, also blows my mind. Every state, one of the largest employers is teachers. So you would think they'd have some power to say, hey, you're going to cover all this, and you're going to do it really cheap. Otherwise, you're not going to get all these people to pay you. Instead, teachers have crap insurance. But because they have crap insurance, other companies come in. One of them is called American Fidelity. Is like, hey, we know your insurance is crap. We've got this supplemental policy we'll sell you. This way, when you are about to go broke, we'll chip in. Keep you from totally sinking. I signed up for one of those when I was teaching and never let it go. So I still have that. So hopefully that'll cover some of this cost before I have to sell my kidney to save my heart. Man, I tell you, it's really bad. Here's an example. So in our state, where I'm in Oklahoma, there's this law that they got passed by our house. I have no idea how this happened, but it was a law to make it where it wouldn't just be big pharmacies. They would have an equal opportunity for even local pharmacies to be in the marketplace for the medicines or whatever. The idea is that it keeps it where you'd be more competition for pharmacies. The pharmacy companies like CVS and Walgreens paid for this huge ad to run on Facebook and other places telling Governor Stitt to veto it. Call him up. For freedom of our medicines, we should get to choose. When in fact, it couldn't have been the more opposite. And I was reading the comments and most people believe that crap. Because we believe it. We're sheep. Oh, it says it. Goes against your own interest and they'll believe it. The medical stuff's broke. And it's because they're pretty good at psychologically warfaring you to believe something that's really good for you is bad, and that something's bad for you is really good. And I'm not a socialist. I just am tired of paying money for something that really doesn't give you much of anything, and you don't have a choice. It's either go broke or go completely broke. What kind of choice is that? If you're in other countries, like I heard Great Britain and stuff, Canada, you don't have this. And before someone says, oh, they've got long wait times. Oh my gosh. I would prefer to have a longer wait time and not have to worry about losing everything. Now you heard my rant. I promise this will be the only political thing I ever do. I just hate the medical system with a passion. And I don't care what president it is. Be like, oh, you like Joe, but I don't like any president. None of them, because they all lied to me. They've all lied every time. Same with every governor that's out there. One of the governors like DeSantos or even Stitt here, if they had any balls, they'd be like, hey, I'm going to pass this thing in our state where it says you can only charge this much. And if you have insurance, then the insurance has to cover everything, because that's what insurance is. Do that, I'd vote for you. Because I don't vote now. Why bother? It is a waste. You don't listen to the voters anyway. Keep pretending like you do. But if you did that, I'd vote for you. If you said, I'm going to make a state law or executive order that if you have insurance, the insurance has to cover 100% of everything. There are no copays. There are no deductibles. Your insurance is insurance. Then I'll do it. Oh, and cap what they can actually charge. Then I'll be for that. Or, hey, if you sell these drugs in our state, you can only sell them for this cost. Period. Oh, you don't like it? See ya. We'll get someone else. Works for Canada. I wish someone had some balls. Before you say, well, you know, Trump, or I don't care anything about Trump. He did the same thing. I'm going to give you the best medical. You had the House, you had the Senate, and the presidency, and the Supreme Court. You couldn't get nothing. You know why? Because each and every one of them, not against Trump before you think that, each and every one of you were paid off by pharmacies or doctors, or not really doctors, pharmacies or medical providers, not doctors and stuff. They ain't paying a campaign. All those people paying you off, those you listen to. Not us people that might have voted. I don't vote. Anyway, this is my only political rant I will ever make. And I'll probably lose subscribers, and God, I hope not. Because you're going to get the best content I can give you on race car stuff. Political stuff, no. Because I've seen enough of the political ads to know nobody's changing their opinion. Even me saying this. You still got people believe the same thing you believed before, whether your insurance sucked or whether it's nice. It won't matter. People are locked into what they believe. All I know is I've seen it. I feel it. This isn't right. And it's going to keep getting wrong. Each year, insurance is going to go up too. Next year, my insurance will be $1,000. And it'll cover less. And what are we going to do? Well, I'm mad. Nothing's going to change. People that are in power are still going to do the same thing. Even if you yell at them. Until you pay them. Act about corruption in Mexico or something. The corruption here. Sorry. Wrong rant. Long rant. Anyway, my heart's, I don't know. It actually didn't speed up when I was doing this whole rant, which is kind of weird. Bet you if I check my watch now, it'd still say atrial fibrillation. It actually feels fine now, which is weird too because I'm working out. It felt fine. It wasn't until I stopped. Anyway, I gotta get to grinding because I gotta pay for this medical bills. America.